Rochester, Gorlak to Brindaki.
Joy.
Anadakuni Vaishnava Brindaki.
Joy.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Joy.
Jainatai Go Pramanandi.
Hari Bol.
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare.
Welcome everybody to Friday night. Rochester, Sanga. Hare Krishna. I'm very honored to be here with you all, and I was very impressed with the pumpkin forms. Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, who have appeared on the altar today. I think we should give a round of applause to them. Excellent. Beautiful day it is. Of course, it's very thematic because today is Halloween. And as far as I've understood in Vedic culture, the pumpkin traps ghosts. And they're utilized in certain ceremonies to, if there's a haunting, a pumpkin can be used and hold the ghost inside.
Evil. Sorry.
It's handmade. Who made this? Oh no, who made the garland?
Danagati, probably.
Dandati.
You made the garland?
Sorry?
Who made the garland? You?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Be
careful.
Feminine grace.
A normal garland.
It's exhibited beautifully on this garland. You obviously are golden. So we in our country, of course, in England and in America, Northern European countries, I guess, they cut the face out in the pumpkin and put a candle inside. It looks kind of spooky. But this is a much more devotional experience with pumpkins. These pumpkins are very fortunate because they have become deities. And these pumpkins' lives have become perfected.
Maybe they'll go straight back to Godhead.
Yes, they're already there. They're already with Jagannath. So I feel this is very blessed pumpkins. So thank you so much for bringing them in. Halloween is an interesting time of year where we celebrate spookiness and we celebrate the ghouls and goblins and ghosts. And it's an exciting time where the witches fly on their broomsticks tonight and do their nefarious deeds. Of course, you know, in this country, I'm from London, and the city of London was the place where they would burn the witches. And the way they would test to see if a witch was a real witch or not, because they'd be suspicious. Maybe they were chanting some mantra or doing an arati or something like that. What is this? Witchcraft! So they would test them by tying their hands and legs and throwing them in the local river. And if they drowned, they were innocent. But if they floated and survived, then they were guilty and had to be burned to death. That was one way of testing. Another way was they had a big Bible and they would put that on one end of the scales, and the proposed witch would stand on the other end of the scale, and if the witch was heavier than the Bible, then it was a real witch and had to be burnt at the stake. Of course, the book wasn't very heavy, it was just a book. But those were the ways. Of course, we've come a long way since the Dark Ages. Dark Ages because it was an age of ignorance, illiteracy. It wasn't until the Enlightenment when knowledge from the East was rediscovered and people started to think again outside of their little box. But Halloween has remained. And I'm not, to be quite honest, I don't know the exact purpose of Halloween. I don't know if anybody does. But it is interesting to talk about this topic of the paranormal. And we have a nice verse for today, which is from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 9:25. Yanti deva vrata devan pitri yanti vitri vrata bhutani yanti bhutesha yanti madhyashinopimam. And the translation is, those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings, and those who worship me will live with me. So here in the purport, Prabhupada goes on to explain how, maybe we can just read a little bit of the purport actually. If one has any desire to go to the moon, the sun, or any other planet, one can attain the desired destination by following specific Vedic principles recommended for that purpose, such as the process technically known as Darsha Purnamasa. These are vividly described in the fruitive activities portion of the Vedas, which recommend the specific worship of demigods situated on different heavenly planets. Similarly, one can attain the Pita planets by performing a specific yajna. Similarly, one can go to many ghostly planets and become a yaksha, raksha, or pishacha. Pishacha worship is called black arts or black magic. There are many men who practice this black art, and they think that it is spiritualism, but such activities are completely materialistic. Similarly, a pure devotee who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead only achieves the planets of Vaikuntha and Krishna Loka without a doubt. It is very easy to understand through this important verse that if by simply worshipping the demigods one can achieve the heavenly planets, or by worshipping the Pitas achieve the Pita planets, or by practicing the black arts achieve the ghostly planets, why can the pure devotee not achieve the planet of Krishna or Vishnu? Unfortunately, many people have no information of these sublime planets where Krishna and Vishnu live, and because they do not know of them, they fall down. Even the impersonalists fall down from the Brahmajyoti. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore distributing sublime information to the entire human society to the effect that by simply chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one can become perfect in this life and go back home, back to Godhead. Back to Godhead key.
Sure.
Avoiding the ghostly planets key.
Sure.
Who wants to go there? Maybe some people do. Have you ever felt you've been haunted? Sometimes we're haunted by memories. Sometimes we're haunted by desires. Sometimes we're haunted by an overactive intelligence which keeps coming up with completely speculative ideas. Haunts you like a ghost. It's talked about in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sometimes we're haunted by people from the past. We can be haunted in many ways. But these ghostly hauntings are referring to beings, individuals, souls who have lost the qualification to achieve a physical form, who are forced to wander on this earthly plane without any ability to interact or engage in any activities to be able to interact with this world as we know it. Because they have no physical body. They're living in an ethereal body, a ghostly form, which can also be mostly described as a subtle body. We have our gross material bodies, which we're very proud of. We look at it in the mirror every day, make sure it looks, okay. But then we also have our subtle bodies, and God knows what they look like. Probably not very good. You can imagine every time you get an injury and you have a scar on your gross body, imagine how many traumas you have in your subtle body. Because you carry the same subtle body from lifetime to lifetime. So all the anarthas we have, all the traumas we've experienced in this life and previous lives, are all there embedded in your subtle body. and then come up from the subconscious mind into the form of desires. And that's not something you can control. Modern psychology tries to delve into this unconscious world to try to help us understand and overcome obstacles in our life, to get us back on the right track, to working hard like an ass. But the reality is, the only way to overcome trauma is to go to the very root of the problem. Our main trauma is that we've forgotten Krishna. Completely forgotten about him. And that is a disaster. Because we can't be happy unless we're connected to Krishna. Jivas are energies of the Lord, and jivas can interact and try to love one another, but you can never truly love one another unless Krishna is involved. Impossible. We have to go to the reservoir of all love, the love supreme, as Prabhupada calls it. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these ghostly beings, these poor tortured souls, for whatever reason, they become very attached to this world, but due to some mistake, or due to some sinful activity, they are no longer qualified to have a physical form, but are forced to wander here. That's why in Vedic culture you would burn the body very quickly. In fact, if a person dies, their body has to be burned before the next sunrise. Why? Because the ghost will hang around being attached to that body in a hope that they're not dead. So by destroying the body completely, and all cultures around the world have some kind of system like that, whether it's a sky burial or burning, or it helps the soul move on to the next world. Whereas if you preserve the body, put it in a freezer for like 2 weeks, waiting for the funeral, and then have the funeral, and then you bury the body, it's not having the same effect. And therefore they can be hauntings. Therefore graveyards are often considered haunted places. Ghosts are usually wicked by nature. They're not kind. Because they're twisted and bitter and angry, frustrated. And therefore they can cause trouble in a person's life. But we have to protect ourselves from the influence of low frequency entities who are operating on lower vibrations, lower modes of nature. And ghosts fall into that category. Very miserable life. So we can protect ourselves in many ways. Cleanliness is one of them, because ghosts are attracted to the mode of ignorance. Wherever there's a mode of ignorance, for example, intoxication, too much sleep, various other self-harmings that we may do to ourselves, we widen our arms open and we're inviting the influence of subtle body beings into our life. This all may sound far-fetched and supernatural, but this is just scratching the surface. Srila Prabhupada said, if you knew the truth, you would be shaking in your boots. Actually, we're always being attacked by subtle-bodied beings. Mystics know this very well, and therefore they try to protect themselves in different ways, but the best way to protect yourself is simply to surrender to the Lord. There's another being here who's attracted to this garland of flowers. This is such a beautiful garland, just like in Vrindavan, the bees. What kind of insect is this one? No, I can't see. Oh, it's a wasp. Okay. Thanks for warning me, guys.
I stepped on one last week. Standing on it.
There's a wasp ghost hanging around. So the knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita can be utilized for good, or it can be utilized for evil. What is evil anyway? Well, according to the Ishopanishad, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagacham jagat tena tena punjita magrita kasya suttanam. That a pious life, a righteous life, is living a life in harmony with the Lord's will. The Ishavasyam principle. That everything belongs to He, nothing belongs to us, and therefore everything should be engaged in His service. But the Lord is kind according to my karma. I've got a certain allotment, a certain quota in this life. And I should use that for my maintenance, for the maintenance of my family. But I shouldn't then unnecessarily demand more than what I deserve in this life. And even worse than that, exploit others to achieve higher levels of material accomplishment. That is considered demonic. What's a demon? It's just a materialist. It's somebody who doesn't accept the Lord, doesn't worship God, doesn't love Krishna. Someone who's selfish. And we all have demons within us. We all have, because the Christians say there's like an angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. But the principle is that there's two sides to us also. There's a materialistic pushing. What about me? Got to look after number one in this life. This is a rat race, and only the top dog's going to come out. So we may have to tread on a few toes, but you have to break some eggs to make an omelette. Sorry, vegetarians. No, but that's how we're taught in school. That's how society teaches us. You compete, and if you have to defeat others to get to the top, well, so be it. And if they suffer, well, tough luck. That's just the world, my friend. And so then we don't hesitate to bomb civilians or to exploit poor countries for all their resources so the people living there suffer. We don't mind because it's our standard of living we have to preserve. I am important, my family is important, my nation is important, my race is important, my religion is important. We have all these upadis, these false designations, which are only current for this life. But a broad-minded person who can see beyond just one life, or even within this life, all these things can change. You can change your nation. You can change your religion. You can even change your gender these days. There's so many things you can change about yourself. Michael Jackson even changed his colour. So you can do anything, really. But you can't change the fact you're a servant of God. That's eternal. That's your sanatana dharma, eternal service. Without doing that, you're a demon. Because it's only through God consciousness can you actually have compassion for others and not judge them based upon the body that they're in. Because we have the gross physical body and we have the subtle body, the astral body. And every night when you dream, you're entering into that astral world, the subtle world of the mind. And you may interact with other beings in that dream. And have you ever noticed, when you wake up from your dream, you realize while you were dreaming, you have absolutely no memory of this reality at all. It's like you're a completely different person. And when you wake up, it's something else. You come into a different reality. And because this reality is continuous, you will assume that was just a dream, because it was temporary. Experiments have been done with virtual reality machines where a person is woken up inside the virtual reality illusion. And very quickly they identify with the illusion as real life. You can look into the research. It's very interesting that we accept what is seemingly permanent as reality. But is this life actually permanent? According to Bhagavad Gita, no, this life is also temporary. We've had many lives before this one and we'll have many lives after. So this life in that sense is also a bit like a dream. We have a sleeping state, dreamless sleep. We have a dreaming sleep, and we have a waking state. What state are we in right now? Well, spiritually, we're in our sleeping state. We haven't woken up yet. We're dreaming. But the self-realized soul who's aware of his eternal spiritual identity is a jivan mukta, a liberated soul. That person is actually awake. Whereas we're kind of dreaming, waiting for a self-realized spiritual master to come and wake us up. Anyway, going back to the subtle body. So modern science doesn't accept the subtle body. Modern science doesn't even really accept consciousness as anything real, because it cannot be mathematically understood. It's beyond physical laws or chemical laws, and even biology is very badly understood actually. And we know practically nothing about the human body. We can't cure most diseases, we can't stop old age, we can't stop death. It's a mystery how cells divide, because life itself, nobody knows the origin of it, how it started. We have some anecdotal stories of how life began. Obviously, it was a lightning strike into some muddy pond, some sludge, and then, wow, life began. Of course, it's never been repeated, it's impossible. And nobody's been able to synthesize life, only reproduce life that already exists. If you ask a scientist, please, can you produce for me at least one blade of grass? He will not be able to do it. You can also ask the scientist, okay, well, at least take this grass and make some milk out of it. It's easily done by a cow every day, but no scientist could ever repeat that feat. But they're so proud of their learning, and they dictate from their pulpits, and we all submissively accept what they're saying, because they are the authorities of the modern age. And to maintain the status quo, maintain their power and influence, it's very important to keep God out of the picture and dismiss any possibility that there could be an original creator. And definitely we also need to dismiss the paranormal too, because that's something also the scientists can't understand. So therefore anybody who brings up topics of the paranormal will be laughed at, their careers may be destroyed, they'll lose their funding, and they're finished. So nobody talks about it. Of course, these days, there's a lot of podcasters, and mainstream news has lost its influence. In fact, hardly anyone in the younger generations watches the news anymore. It's from the older generation, they still watch it, but young people, they watch independent media now, watch podcasts. And those guys are talking about these things. Whether it's alien abductions or ancient civilizations or mystic powers. These things are discussed openly, and it's very interesting. Interestingly enough, the idea of an out-of-body experience has actually been empirically tested. Anyone here had a heart attack? Sorry, no one. It's a good person, you don't have to say it. But a high percentage of cardiac arrest victims have had out-of-body experiences. And remember them. There's been studies done, not just in America, but also in this country, where cardiac victims who were technically dead for a period of time and had to be resuscitated are asked to, did you remember what it was like when you were dead? And they say, many of them say, and all their stories are similar. The idea of floating out of their body and looking down upon themselves, technically in a ghostly form, and seeing what's going on in the room. Some of them even leave the room and go out into the corridors. Some of them even go out the window, see what's going on outside. And then at some point or another, they feel they're being pulled back into their body again. And then they feel like they've fallen back into their body suddenly. Everybody says that. And then they're awake in the body again. And so then they'll ask questions. Can you please explain to us what was going on at the time when you were physically dead, mentally dead? There was no brain, nothing going on there because the blood had stopped flowing. And obviously their eyes and ears were not working because they were dead. And they explain very specifically the procedures that were carried out on them, which are specific to that individual patient, and things that they wouldn't know unless they were medically trained. The order of the events and so forth, who did what, and it can be quite bewildering to hear that if we don't understand this science of the layers of what we're made up out of, a gross body, a subtle body, and the soul ultimately, who is really just the observer of what the gross and subtle body does. the idea of a conscious observer is something, if we're just a little bit meditative, a little bit reflective, we can understand that we're actually simply observing the functioning of our minds. Because what does the mind do? It creates an image. The senses are picking up information, and then that's processed by the mind, and the mind produces an image, but somebody has to look at the image. It's like this screen here, information has been fed into a computer, which is of course just a replica of the human mind, and then that information that goes to a screen, but without a conscious observer, what's the point of that information? There has to be an observer. Nothing can move, nothing can work unless there's a conscious being there. So Srila Prabhupada went to great lengths to establish that life doesn't come from matter, matter comes from life. It's not that matter came first and then life came out of that. Rather, no, first there was spirit, and from spirit was generated the subtle body, and from the subtle body was generated the gross body. And we know that from Bhagavad Gita. Antikale chamameva smaram mukpa kalevaram yaprayatim samadbhavam yatinasti atrasam shaya. Whatever you remember at the end of life, antikale, that's the consciousness that you developed during your life. Whatever you remember at the time of death, then that will dictate what kind of body you have. So we can understand that the bodies that we're in now have been generated due to the mind. The influence of the consciousness has generated and chosen bodies that have been selected for us, which match our consciousness. So if we've developed a doggish kind of consciousness, for example, I mean, I've got nothing against dogs. I like them, I think they're really lovely. But if you think of your dog, because we love our dogs, at the time of death, who's going to feed my dog? Then it's very risky what kind of body we may end up with. Or who's going to look after my kids? Okay, or we get a human form. That's very good. Perhaps. But if you have divine thoughts and the divine consciousness, and you're immersed in a meditation, the spiritual realm, then you achieve a body which is suitable for that. So this science, this yogic science, has been delineated very diligently by Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita many times, and this is one of the instructions, that whoever you worship in this life is going to mold your consciousness, and it's going to be automatic that at the time of death, whatever your shelter has been in this life, you will take shelter of that at death, because we have to take shelter of something. People take shelter of, maybe some of you guys can come up with some suggestions, but people take shelter of alcohol to ease the pain, because the horror of daily life is just too much, so I want to forget. Or I want to relax and just be more sociable, so I can distract myself from the problems of my life. So there are alcohol, or marijuana, or different other
TV
intoxicants. What an invention that was. Hey, the government really got that one right. Huh? Genius. How to get everybody off the streets and in their little rooms and locked in. And not only that, but they're completely submissive because it puts you in a light trance. So any information they want to program you with, they just do it through the television. Genius. And they make you pay for it. You've got to hand it to the demons. They're good. So then they realize maybe people are watching less TV. So, and wouldn't it be more effective if they just carried a little TV around in their pockets? That would really be clever. Yeah, let's just give them all really cheap devices, and they can just watch all of our stuff whenever we want them to. And we can track what they're doing too, so we can understand and manipulate them even more easily. That's smart. course, the demons are also foolish in the sense that they're always an illusion, thinking they have more control than they do, and therefore through the same mediums, open-minded people also have a voice for the first time in their life. Having cornered the media market and all the news channels, and now there's finally some independent news. Anyway, so this verse is explaining who we worship in this life, who we take shelter of, that's where we're going to go. That's where our mind is going to go. So who do we love? Who do we worship? Do we worship our dog? Because you pick up the poo and it's nice and warm in the plastic bag and put it in our pocket. Because we love our dogs so much, we'll do anything for him. Who else do we worship? We worship our boss at work. Be so nice to him. Maybe he'll give me a pay rise if I'm just very nice and kiss his backside. Please, can I have a little bit more money? So we've become like dogs also, and going from door to door, begging for some scraps. Who do we worship? Do we worship the pop idols? Our famous musicians, like I'm so out of date now. What's her name? The really famous one.
Taylor Swift.
Who?
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, Taylor Swift. That's it, yeah. We worship Taylor Swift. Or maybe we worship Donald Trump. Very strong man, telling everyone what to do. He's messing up loads of stuff as well. And who else could we worship? No one's going to worship Kirtan, obviously. Poor guy. Not very impressive. I know different countries, they worship all kinds of things, and they worship a mountain, a tree, and they also sometimes worship ghosts. Because those who are very interested in the paranormal, whether they're using their Ouija boards or they're using different methods, techniques to access beings from that astral world, this is also the result of taking hallucinogenic drugs like DMT or ayahuasca or peyote cactus, which a lot of people in South America, which is like used to be the home of the demons according to the Vedas, a lot of people do that and access these creatures and these strange beings and develop relationships with them in this astral world, and sometimes they just want to go there and not come back here, but they don't realize that that's actually what's going to happen to them at the end of this life, because they've become attracted to that. They've taken shelter of that. Incidentally, it's interesting because in those realms often they come across these weird grey guys with the big heads and the black eyes. The same ones that abduct people, and so they're living in that realm. That's why they can come and take people out of a room and take them through the ceiling. They're actually paranormal beings. Weird. I mean, if you worship those guys, like you want to watch the X-Files, maybe people watch the X-Files anymore. Where are you going to go? People worship demigods. Okay, so better, mode of goodness, ignore. But still, it means you're taking birth still within the material universe, temporary, still subject to birth and death. So therefore, worship of Vishnu is recommended. Worship of Jagannath in the pumpkin form is recommended, on Halloween especially. And we've all been worshipping them today through our Kirtan. The holy name is so powerful that it drives away all these dark forces. The modes of passion and ignorance cannot stand in front of the holy name. They have to leave. Therefore, one who is always constantly chanting the pure name, Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, Puno Shudo Nityamukto, Binapam Nama Namano. That the name is so pure, it isn't just empowered by the Lord, it is the Lord. We're in the Lord's presence by chanting His name. And where there is light, there can be no darkness. When you're facing the sun, you don't see any shadow. It's only when you turn away from the sun, suddenly you see all the shadows. Do we want to be attracted to the shadows? The shadowy world? Or do you want to go towards the light? This is really the choice that we have. It's really the only independent choice we have. And all other choices stem from that initial decision. We can choose. Why not? Who doesn't want to go to Vrindavan and live eternally in the forests, walk along the river, play with the cows and Krishna's cowherd boyfriends and girlfriends, with the peacocks, beautiful trees, desired trees that bear unlimited fruits and jewels. Divyat Vrindaranya Kalp Drumada. Don't we want to go to that realm? Isn't that so attractive? Even if you don't believe it exists, but at the moment of death you will go to where your mind is, your consciousness goes. So why not just go to Krishna? Repose your faith there. And take shelter of him and his lotus feet. This is what's recommended in all Vedic literatures. So therefore there's no need to fear ghosts, and if you ever get attacked by a ghost at night and you feel a heavy weight on your chest and you can't breathe and you feel like you can't wake up, you can chant. We've been given the means by which to drive away ghosts. Srila Prabhupada was the original Ghostbuster. Maybe you've heard of his pastimes in John Lennon's house, which was haunted. And Srila Prabhupada, you explained to his disciples how to remove the ghosts, and they did. You just simply perform Sankirtan. You blow the conch. You use incense. They hate incense. You ring bells. That's why there's a bell in every temple that you ring. They love hanging around in doorways, so that's why the bell's in the doorway. Drive away these lower energetical beings through blasting the conch, clanging your cartels, chanting the holy names. And if it's really, really not working and you're terrified, then you just reach out to Lord Nrsimhadev. Lord Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki jai. Who's not going to be afraid of him? He knows how to deal with demons. So we're fully protected. Our 16 rounds is like an armor that we wear. Like a kavacha. Protects us. Like I said, Prabhupada mentioned that if you just knew the truth, you would quake in your boots. This is a very dangerous world. It's not just dangerous for the people in physical forms who are out to exploit us. And not just the ones that you see, but the ones that you don't see behind the scenes, the vested interests who are manipulating this world for the gain of very few. Not just those guys, but the guys that they worship. Because the Bhagavad Gita can be used for good, but it can always also be used for evil. The same way. Oh, I can worship, because it's mentioned that if you worship ghosts and demons, you can get power. Demon worship brings you power, strength, wealth, things that demons love. So therefore, these things go on. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a story of Jat Bharat, who was almost given up as a human sacrifice to the goddess Kali. Human sacrifices may seem a bit wild and far out, but do not underestimate the thirst for power that is in the heart of the demons. And these things go on. So there's a lot of things to be careful of. That's why I was so grateful to see the appearance of Lord Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra in their pumpkin forms, because something that would otherwise perhaps be an impetus for fear has been turned into an impetus for love. So thank you very much. Those are my thoughts for the day. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Questions? Yes, please.
This might be a bit of a digression from your main points, but in the verse in purport it refers to the planets of the Pitas, or ancestors. So I'm wondering what kind of person goes to a planet of the ancestors, because usually, if you are attached to the body, you're going to take a ghostly body or otherwise you're presumably going to move on to your next body. So what kind of person will go to the planet of the ancestors?
Yeah, it's very common. So the planet of the ancestors is like a heavenly realm. In Vedic culture, the idea of worshipping your ancestors is very prevalent because it helps them. It helps them move on to higher and higher realms. If you perform sacrifice in their name, and then it helps your ancestors. So therefore, if somebody has recently departed, and I've recommended friends to do this, you can cook a feast and you distribute it to all the devotees, and then the last plate goes to the departed ancestors' picture. That gives the effect that they have fed all the Vaishnavas, and that's a very powerful sacrifice for them to have performed, and it helps them go further, closer to Krishna in their next life. So helping the ancestors is a very good thing. If you have a great appreciation for your mother, your father, your grandmother, whatever, it's a good thing to do. Fortunately, the devotees, because we are so connected to Krishna through his chanting and worshipping the deity, that these things are automatically achieved. So, for example, when Prahlad Maharaj delivered his father, he was told that, I think it was up to 14 generations were delivered by you, Prahlad, just by being a devotee. So we don't need to do these separate ceremonies. It will be more as a sentimental help to help us get over loss. We can do it and it's a good thing. But worship of the Pitas, the ancestors, if your ancestors were so great, you may worship them. People do that. They may not do it grossly, but they do it subtly. They talk how great their ancestors were. In culture, aristocratic families, they do it all the time. They have big pictures of their ancestors on the walls. You know? Maybe you've seen. So in India, that's very common, to have pictures of your ancestors on the walls. So ancestor worship. But the warning is, if you're too much into that and you're not worshipping Krishna, then your destination won't be the spiritual realm, it will be a heavenly planet. Incidentally, the Yamadutas, I didn't speak about those guys. You know, those scary guys that pull you out your body if you're, been a nefarious, crook in this life. So it sounds, again, wild, but it's in medicine, in hospitals, they have this term called terminal restlessness. Terminal restlessness is a condition where just before a person dies, like during the day or two before they leave, they become very agitated, disturbed. They start speaking about people in the room, or there's a horrible man in the window, or why is there dogs in the room, things like that. And they say, oh, they're just going mad because they're dying. They inject them with some, heavy sleep sedative, and they die in their sleep. A lot of people just die like that these days on their own. Sad as it is. So these guys, the dogs come first because they're smelling for people who are dying, then the Yamadutas come. And if we've been sinful in this life, they take you out of your body and take you for rectification, punishment. So these Yamadutas actually Pitris from the Pitta planets who weren't given offerings by their ancestors. Because if they are not given any pinda or worship, then they become starved. They become bitter and twisted and angry. And then they're engaged by Yamaraj in service to punish people who are not pious. Interestingly, these weird grey aliens look a bit like Yamadutas. They kind of send them to punish us, take us off to some punishment somewhere, to give us a little taste of what's to come if you don't change your ways. So, a bit about Pitas. Hare Krishna. Any other questions from the group here? I really like questions. I think they're so nice. And, sometimes I feel a bit shy. My questions are a bit silly. There's no silly questions, actually. All questions are very valid. And it just really helps to open up.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, please.
So you mentioned South America.
Yeah, the land of gold, right? Demons love gold so much. So it said Ravana's kingdom was actually there in South America. It's interesting, isn't it? Because the Mayas, the Maya kingdom, there's a very famous demon, Mayadanava. Mayadanava was the demon that created the Yudhishthira Maharaj's assembly house. This amazing architecture, beyond what any human can do. And it's interesting because there's a pretty incredible architecture down there too in South America with these big megalithic structures and so forth. And we all know, I mean, the conquistadors are also, like complete bags. But they weren't doing human sacrifices. This is really quite demonic. And there's a kind of, it is said that that part of the world was really overrun with demons in the Vedic times. Because these days, since Christianity has come there, it's changed a lot. And there's many miracles and actually a lot of paranormal visions there to encourage the local population to take to Christianity when it came. Some really interesting stories about that. Maria of Guadalupe is a very famous story where this beautiful being who this individual took to be Mother Mary came and was encouraging the local people to take to worship Jesus and God. And there's a shroud where her image has been somehow or another photographed onto a cloth. Even this was in like the 1500s. And it still exists and it hasn't decayed at all. You can still see that image perfectly. And it's a complete mystery how it was done. And it's so perfect that even the eye of Mary, when it's zoomed into, you can see the outlines of the people that reflected in the person's eye that's in the image. It's quite a miraculous, inexplicable event. So yes, it's at the same time, so you hear some pretty messed up stuff going on down there.
Is that why they have the Day of the Dead?
The what?
The Day of the Dead. Mexicans.
The Day of the Dead's like Monday morning, isn't it?
That's celebrated in South. I don't know what part of South America it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of shamans and a lot of intoxication-based spiritualism. It's all coming from there. Yeah, that's just what they're into. I mean, I read a book once called, was it The Diary of one American went to live with a witch doctor in Mexico.
Don Juan.
Don Juan, yeah. I mean, some of the ceremonies they're doing is just so dark, right? It's dark arts, it's witchcraft. But that's what the local populace were really into. And when the Spanish came there, they just couldn't believe what was going on. It was just so, because it doesn't justify the genocide of an entire civilization.
I think that's probably quite possibly what the impression the British got when they went to India also for some people.
Definitely the Christian fanatics did, for sure. But there's a lot, the Indologists, despite themselves, because they were all paid by the British to make the Indians feel ashamed of their own culture. And they did very well. But at the same time in their writings, they can't help but note the high character of individuals in the scriptures there. Especially like Mahabharata, Ramayana, they say these literatures are like, we haven't heard about characters of such high caliber anywhere else in the world. Even Max Muller, who was the biggest of the Indologists, had to admit at the end that the reality is that we have no idea how old these books are. Because the timeline that these like 1500 BC all comes from him. But at the end of life he admitted we have no idea how old these are, these stories. And possibly they are true histories. At the end of life he had some change of heart. Because the good thing about, for the British, is that we have curry on the menu in this country now. Just amazing that we get British love carriers, so there's that easy access point to Indian culture through the carrier. But we also know that Prabhupada, when he arrived in the West, and was interviewed once at an airport, and he was asked, "Why have you come here?" And he said, "Well, you came to my country," he said this in Britain, "and you plundered everything. But you forgot the greatest jewel. So I've come here to deliver it to you for free." So, Bhagavad Gita. You missed the most important thing. And so India at that time, during the pre-Mughal era, even during the Mughal era, it was the richest country on the planet. It was 2/3 of the world's GDP was coming out of India. The Romans almost bankrupted their society by giving so much money for spices, silk, and other things. Christopher Columbus wasn't trying to discover a new world, he was trying to go to India. Because that's where all the good stuff was, everybody knew. And everybody in Europe at that time really admired India. Everybody had some little knowledge of Sanskrit, and it was often considered among the intellectual class that was the origin of civilization, the origin of language, the origin of technology and astrology and so many things. That's what the Enlightenment revealed. But then, during the colonial era, it was required for complete control of the country to do away with this feeling of respect for India. We had to be re-educated to look down upon India, and the Indians had to look down upon their own country. And that was very successfully done. And so now India's coming out of that. The current Modi ji is really bringing the pride of the heritage, the country of India back to the forefront. And naturally economic success will follow. Because if you do your dharma, artha follows. India hasn't been doing its dharma, has become a poor country, but if India does its dharma, and the Indian dharma is to spread spiritual knowledge all over the world, that's its duty. Yate dere tahi kai Krishna upadesh, amara ogai gur hoya tare. Idesh, Lord Chaitanya says it, if you're born in this land, it's your duty to live for the benefit of all other people. That's the duty of people born in Bharat. To live for the benefit of all others. If they don't, no one will. And so Srila Prabhupada encapsulated and personified that mood, and look what he's done. And it's just the beginning. And we're all so inspired to continue his work.
It does seem rather odd that, all the evidence is there that Vedic culture is like the cradle of civilization, and all of that are in the West, we're always directed toward Egypt. We're a bit lazy to be in the critical. It seems a bit odd because the evidence is obviously there and it wasn't, but it isn't. So,
well, that's the problem, it's too obvious. So it can't be that. It's like the origin of the Indo-European language group. So, because the Iranian language and Sanskrit language is very close, because it was one civilization at one point. Iran literally means the land of the Aryans. And the religion of Iran before Islam was fire worship. They were doing these yagyas, they wore threads, and Brahmins. But according to linguists, it can't be Sanskrit that's the original language. It just can't be. It must be another language that was the origin of both Sanskrit and Iranian language that used to exist but doesn't exist anymore. But there's no evidence that such a language ever existed, not written, not oral. It's just a theory, because a priori, civilization could not begin in India. Not allowed.
So is Sanskrit a written language or a spoken language?
It's both.
Is it both?
Yeah.
So its origins was spoken first and then written, or written first?
Well, it's Devanagari, so originally it was spoken by the demigods, and before that it was spoken by... Yeah. It's not from this realm, the origin of all language. And it's the most sophisticated language also. It takes 12 years just to learn the grammar. There's no language like that anymore. We have the word love, which means just about anything you want it to. In Sanskrit, there's over 100 words for that same, depending on how you're using it, directing it. And that goes for everything. It's so sophisticated. Why would it be that language was more sophisticated? The further you go back, the more sophisticated it is. Surely, if people were just tribals, it would be more simple, and it's become more sophisticated. But that's not what's happening. And that goes for everything. Architecture, the further you go back, the better it is. Right? When you look at Egypt or Mesopotamia or South America, when these ancient megaliths are there, we can't do that anymore. We have no idea how they did it. Just some theories, they built them on logs. But really? Stonehenge, no idea how they did it. We can't build stuff like that these days. And in the Vedic scriptures explain the jewel encrusted rooms and the level of wealth that they had. We just don't. So where is that gold now? India had the most expensive object in human history. It was called the Peacock Throne. It was a throne made of solid gold. It weighed 1.5 tons.
I think there was a mention of Dravidian society in India. What we call India today, the Indus civilization. I think India came about because of the British rule, and we mapped out the world and called it India. But prior to that, it wasn't India. It was just a place, and we all apparently came from this place. And the language that was spoken there traveled across the whole of the world. But that was back in the day when we didn't have people that were like cartographers that were drawing maps. But I think even if you look at it as a human species, are we what we designate ourselves to be? Like, say, I'm from South Africa, but I'm not South African. I was born in a country, but that doesn't mean that I'm not Indian or don't follow that culture. If you get what I'm saying, I'm not saying that the civilization of India is purely for the Asian population, because Srila Prabhupada was always talking about how this is not for one specific race group, it's for everyone. But because of our designations, we see it as separate. Like only Asians will know this culture, but yet it is not.
Yeah, I never understood that either. So, sometimes, for example, Christians say, why are you taking up a foreign religion, a foreign language? But Christianity also isn't from Europe, man. It's like from the Middle East,
Yeah.
and it wasn't in English. It was in Hebrew. So, all the names you use, like Yahweh, Jehovah, these are. So it's just nonsense. No, God and worship of God is for everybody, and it doesn't matter which culture you practice it in, which religion you go through. It's your expression for love in different flavors, and they're all beautiful. So this sectarian ideology, which is very good at keeping people divided and in boxes because it's easy to control, is destroying the energy of human beings. So divide and rule. So really only the Sanatana Dharma of ancient India has the framework which can unify the whole world. That's the reality. By the way, there are ancient maps.
Yeah, they are.
Which show the south, like the South Pole was green. 1,000 years before it was discovered. There's a very good map of South America, South Antarctic.
History has been somewhat construed in a specific way to kind of push people toward materialism rather than.
Yeah, so stop watching the news.
I don't actually.
Okay, I better finish now. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Very well.
So I believe we're going to do some Damodarastakam. Is that correct, Mahanta Prabhu?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Krishna
Supreme Lord, whose form is the embodiment of eternal existence, knowledge and bliss, whose sharp-shaped earrings are swinging to and fro, who is beautifully shining the divine realm of Gokul, who, due to the effects of breaking the pot of yogurt that his mother was churning into butter, and then stealing the butter that was kept hanging from the swing, is quickly running from the wooden grinding mortar in fear of Mother Yashoda, but who has been caught from behind by her who ran after him with greater speed. To that Supreme Lord Sri Damodar I offer my humble obeisances. Seeing the whipping stick in his mother's hand, he is crying and rubbing his eyes again and again with his two lotus hands. His eyes are filled with fear, and the necklace of pearls around his neck, which is marked with 3 lines like a conch shell, is shaking because of his quick breathing due to crying. To this Supreme Lord Sri Damodar, whose belly is bound not with rope, but with his mother's pure love, I offer my humble obeisances. By such childhood pastimes as this, he is drowning the inhabitants of Gokul in pools of ecstasy, and is revealing to those devotees who are absorbed in knowledge of his supreme majesty and opulence that he is only conquered by devotees whose pure love is imbued with intimacy and is free from all conceptions of awe and reverence. With great love, I again offer my obeisances to Lord Damodar hundreds and hundreds of times. O Lord, although you are able to give all kinds of benedictions, I do not pray to you for the boon of impersonal liberation, nor the highest liberation of eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor any other boon which may be obtained by executing the 9 processes of bhakti. O Lord, I simply wish that this form of yours as Balagopal and Vrindavan may ever be manifest in my heart, for what is the use to me of any other boon besides this? O Lord, your lotus face, which is encircled by locks of soft black hair tinged with red, is kissed again and again by Mother Yashoda, and your lips are reddish like the bimba fruit. May this beautiful vision of your lotus face be ever manifest in my heart. Thousands and thousands of other benedictions are of no use to me. O Supreme Godhead, I offer my obeisances unto you. O Damodar, O Ananta, O Vishnu, O Master, O my Lord, be pleased upon me. By showering your glance of mercy upon me, deliver this poor ignorant fool who is immersed in an ocean of worldly sorrows and become visible to my eyes. O Lord Damodar, just as the 2 sons of Kuvera, Manigriva and Nalakuvara, were delivered from the curse of Narad and made into great devotees by you in your form as a baby tied with rope to a wooden grinding mortar, in the same way please give to me your own prema bhakti. I only long for this and have no desire for any kind of liberation. O Lord Damodar, I first of all offer my obeisances to the brilliantly effulgent rope which binds your belly. I then offer my obeisances to your belly, which is the abode of the entire universe. I humbly bow down to your most beloved Trinity Radharani, and I offer all obeisances to you, the Supreme Lord, who displays unlimited pastimes. Shri Shri Radha Damodar ki Jai.
Krishna Paraya, Krishna Krishnaya, Udale, Srimati Bhakti Krishna Radha Shiva Sari Gaurabhakti
Jai.
Shri Radha Krishna Govinda Shama Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki
Jai.
Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki
Jai.
Navadvip Maya Bodham Ki
Jai.
Jagannath Puri Dham Ki
Jai.
Ganga Maya Ki
Jai.
Muna Maya Ki
Jai.
Medway Maya Ki
Jai.
Bhakti Devi Ki
Jai.
Tulsi Maharani Ki
Jai.
Ratasta Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki
Jai.
Ananda Kori Vaishnava Vrinda Ki
Jai.
Jayanata Gopadanande
Hare Bolo.
All glory is to Sammadhavati
Hare Krishna.
All glory is to Sammadhavati
Hare Krishna.
All glory is to Sammadhavati
Hare Krishna.
All glory is to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.
All glory to Guru.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much to Dayal Mora. Thank you very much for coming down and joining us this evening. I think we should, after that, now we've frightened all the spirits and ghosts away. We should all put our hands in the air in traditional way to thank very much you devotees for coming down and joining us this evening. Please put your hands in the air and shout very loudly 3 high words.